Today we focus on the state of the nation. This time we're joined by the National Chairman of PRP, People's Redemption Party, Balarabe Musa. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, the dialogue, the conference, describing it differently, began yesterday, which you were also part of. And you saw the headline today saying that group insists on the urgency of national conference. But you've always, lots of groups, perhaps you also, insisting on conference way before now. Why is it more urgent now than previously?
Because the negative state of the nation is growing and is threatening stability in the country, and some of us suspect that it can lead to something even worse. This worse thing is the disintegration of Nigeria. I doubt if it will happen, because those who will lead this country to disintegration are the ruling class, the rich and powerful. And they know how much they will lose. Some of them even will go extinct if Nigeria disintegrates, because in spite of everything, the level of integration in Nigeria economically and socially has gone so far that we really cannot disintegrate without everybody losing so much. What will happen is that we will continue under these 4 long stages of suffering until we can suffer no more and something constructive will set in, either peacefully or otherwise.
When you say that the negative state of the nation is growing, what exactly do you mean by the negative state?
First of all, how many in this country trust the government or any public system at all? Even the president himself has said that all public institutions in the country have collapsed. With regard to the latest threat, Boko Haram, the president says that Boko Haram is there in every government institution, including the Federal Executive Council. Now, how can you go further than this in describing the negative state of the nation? We have always known, in spite of what the president says, with regard to the collapse of public institutions and the presence of this murderous group, we have always known that there is poverty, there is hunger, there is illiteracy, there is disease, and it's visible to everybody except the few who are careless and mindless and who constitute the ruling class in the country.
Yesterday we had the privilege of being in that same hall with you, and almost everything that everyone said wasn't new.
Of course, yes.
It's what everyone has always said, even on this program.
Exactly.
Some say this present generation shouldn't even forgive the older generation because, for instance, your own generation, your forefathers bequeathed to you a fantastic Nigeria. How come your generation couldn't even give this same generation what your forefathers gave to you? How can we reverse the trend to a better and united Nigeria we've always talked about?
Well, I said all this in my presentation yesterday. Unfortunately, I planned the presentation to take 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, but I was given 3 minutes. I explained that we have reached the situation whereby we should not continue mentioning and even analyzing the negative state of the nation. Everybody knows it. Even in terms of national summit like the one we held we started holding yesterday, we have had from 1994 to today at least 3. And at each occasion we were talking about the same thing, problems. But unfortunately, for one reason or another, we have not come to the stage of discussing the root of this problem, the factors responsible for this problem. Because this problem didn't arise from heaven. No, it is the result of an environment. What is this environment? That environment will even explain why things were better in the past than today. And the environment is this. We have a socio-economic system controlling all development in this country. And every country had it at one time or another and still had it. And the leadership produced by this socio-economic and political system. The system is based on self-interest. So it really means a system of the survival of the fittest. And this system has produced a particular leadership appropriate to it, a thieving leadership. And that's why we have this disabling level of corruption, stealing, and criminal waste of resources, which everybody sees everywhere in this country.
But it's always been over time, and with every administration you get to see an increase in it. So why is it that every time we talk about it, we haven't been able to say, let's nip this in the bud, and let's say it's a no-no with this administration?
But the reason is that those in control of this socio-economic system based on self-interest are also the beneficiaries of the system. And they are still active and everywhere and in control. I mean, in spite of the level of poverty and even hunger in this country, you still have a population of, I think at most, 1 million naira in Nigeria who are better off under this condition.
1 million people or 1 million naira?
1 million people.
Sorry.
From all over the country. These are the rich and powerful. These are the ones that have 3 square meals a day. These are the ones that are assured of their security, unless of course the system collapses. The rest of the country, assuming we are 150 million people, the rest of the country, 149 million people, live either in abject poverty, in the sense that they cannot have even 1 good square meal a day.
Okay.
Or they have no assurance for their future. They can't educate their children. They themselves may be uneducated, because we still, in spite of the size of Nigeria, in spite of the fact that we have existed for so long, and in spite of the wealth of Nigeria, those who are illiterate in this country, taking the whole country together, is at least 40%. And even this is only a statistical figure.
Okay. But let me pop in here, because I mean, from your submissions, it does appear that, I mean, we all know that these problems are staring us in the face.
Yes.
And then the group, of course, articulated all of these challenges,
yes.
Which is all there. But if you say that it's systemic, I mean, they are benefiting from it, it's for their self-interest, we don't expect them to just come forward either to convene or facilitate a conference. We expect that perhaps the group should come up, or those who advocate for that conference should by now be thinking about a strategy, since they won't just drop it on their lap. So is there a strategy in place? Because if they won't convene or facilitate one, there needs to be some kind of structure that you put in place to ensure that perhaps from bottom up, we know that it's already begun. Is there any such thing?
No, I really wouldn't say so. Because those who are proposing for such a thing. That is what I can describe as fundamental, peaceful, and qualitative change. Up to now, they are not courageous enough.
And that's a challenge.
That is a challenge.
Because politicians don't want to change the status quo. If they're benefiting from it, I mean, it's human nature.
Yeah, but even those who are suffering from it, up to this stage, don't seem to be having the courage. In terms of public declarations, like what we are doing now, yes. But in terms of committing themselves to bring about the change by whatever means, and that is what other countries who avoided this level of degeneration did. We don't seem to be able to do it. I will give you a current example. We have seen a development in the Arab countries. Some of us believe that it was inspired by imperialism or the agents of imperialism in the countries such as Egypt. But at least it has done one thing: attempted to interrupt the consolidation of reactionary power in those countries. Let's say in Egypt. First, the people rose and overthrew the dictators with the help of the military. And the military is taking advantage of this to replace the dictators as also another dictator. And the people right now are rising and standing against it. They are saying, they are not talking about even democracy in real sense, proletarian democracy, or changing the system, controlling all development in the country. They are just saying we should have a civilian government. That is what we fought the dictator for. And a military government is not a replacement for a civilian government. So you can say they are decisive.
Assuming we're to have an uprising in Nigeria, what do you think should be the demand of the people in Nigeria?
Well, for me, a change of the socio-economic system controlling all development in the country and the leadership produced by the system, which are directly responsible for the negative state of the nation.
Because, you know, if you ask, I've heard this present administration talk about the uprisings in Egypt. They say, and it's obvious to everyone, that the uprisings were against a dictatorship. You have said that yourself.
Yes.
This government was legitimately elected by the people.
Yeah.
So would we advocate...
Which government was legitimately elected by the people?
You do not believe that it was legitimately elected by the people?
I never believed.
From time?
I think there are only two exceptions. In the case of, and you will be surprised that I say so.
Yeah, which one?
In the case of Obasanjo, even though he betrayed, but even before Obasanjo, in the case of Abiola,
which never
happened.
Yeah, tasted power.
I think they are the only two that satisfy my idea of a tolerable election under the circumstances. All the others, including the First Republic, was an imposition. No, sorry, I think the Second Republic, where I participated.
Yeah, you were in the Second Republic.
Yeah, exactly. It was an imposition. Because everybody knows.
So was it that when you became governor of Kaduna State, you were imposed on the people?
Well, there are always exceptions. However good or bad the situation is, there is always an exception, and that is the law of nature.
I really like
Even now, for instance, with the 2011 election, it is possible to prove that one of the governorship elections was an exception.
Just one?
Just, well, maybe one or two, but that is not the general
No, because
situation.
During this last strike, which was the closest we ever got to an uprising, it came up that people made their demands clear. It wasn't just about fuel subsidy anymore.
Exactly.
It was also about good governance.
Yes.
Which was one of the things that came out at the conference yesterday. A host of people have said, yes, we all come here and sit and talk, but to the man on the street, he's not bothered about that. He wants food, he wants water, he wants electricity, and he wants good roads, and he also wants good governance.
Yes.
Are this what we're demanding from the national conference, or what exactly will we be asking for?
This national conference?
From any national conference.
Yeah. Well, actually, we should be demanding for more. Not just these things, because these things can't come about just for the asking. Just because we are demonstrating or we are this. No. We must do something fundamental. We must strike at the power. Political power, because it is the political power that brings about this. It is the political power that is the instrument of the ruling class.
Okay, so what should it be now? Constitutional conference or what? Because there doesn't have to be an uprising for paradigms to shift or for things to be properly done.
It can be anything. It can be anything from the least suffering. I mean, from the one that will bring the least suffering to the one that can lead to the highest level of suffering.
So which
applies, depends on the concrete circumstances at the time.
Give us a picture. If they were to convene one now, a conference,
a
dialogue. If everyone were to come together to that table to talk, what will top the agenda? Constitutional reforms or amendments, or because it has to be the way we're led?
That will be a division. Some will demand for constitutional changes. Some will demand on constitutional reforms, but some will demand a revolutionary change of the socio-economic system.
But how will it come about?
That is it. It depends on the concrete reality on the ground.
Well, looking here, I've heard you speak against capitalism and how it's been practiced and how it's been imported, how we're practicing it now in this country.
How did you know that from me?
Because I have read a little about you.
Okay, good.
Yes. So it's... how would you say, I mean, we're all talking about privatization. During the subsidy brouhaha, we also had, a talk as to whether or not government should completely hands off business, and let in private sector people, or if government should continue to retain a hold of business and clean itself inside out. What would you advocate?
Well, first of all, let us look at what we ourselves said by ourselves. If you are assuming that the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria represents the wishes of the Nigerian people, let us assume for argument's sake that that is the case. Section Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has stated quite clearly that the system that should control development in Nigeria should be a mixed economic system, a non-capitalist system. That is what the Constitution has
Isn't that
said.
what we have now?
That is the assumption that this is what Nigerians want, because we are assuming that the Constitution represents the wishes of Nigeria. This is what it says. But is that what we are practicing.
You don't believe that's what we're
You
practicing?
cannot say that is what we are practicing by having privatization, deregulation, commercialization, and minimal government. And if you are saying that, no, we didn't ask for these things that I've listed. We asked for a non-capitalist development. We asked for a mixed economy, etc. I would ask you, what did you do when a former president of Nigeria, General Babangida, came out publicly and said the 1999 Constitution laid down a capitalist system for Nigeria? What did you react? What did you say? Particularly you who informed Nigerians about the correct situation in the country and even guide. Because Babangida said it with even high level of arrogance that capitalism has been prescribed, capitalist development has been prescribed for Nigeria, which is against the Constitution.
Because we really don't have much of time, but
I hope you could have more.
No, honestly, but we're looking to having you again at least so we can have a fuller time and a fuller moment with you. But again, before we round off this particular moment, is even better than the 5 minutes you were given yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
So, what should be the way forward now? Because young people are already sending messages and they're just not happy with the generation before them.
Yes.
They believe that your generation and so many others have failed them, and they still think that now that you people are still very much around, you should have the solution to all of that problem. So what do you think, away from dialogue and talk shops, if we want some quick fix measure, because everyone needs some kind of quick fix things now, so what should I be thinking of?
Well, my ideal is a revolutionary reconstruction of Nigeria through a socialist reconstruction of Nigeria, starting with the leading role of the state in the socio-economic system for the purpose of establishing basis for peace, equality, the dignity of the human person, and progressive even development of the whole country. This is my idea. But I know ideas, however noble they are, for the sake of mankind, for the sake of humanity, should be developed in stages, progressively, and if possible, peacefully. So I go back and support the provision of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. If we adopt it sincerely and we implement it sincerely, we can see a reliable difference even in 2 years, and we can transform Nigeria completely in terms of quality of life in 10 years. And I can tell you, we can be one of the most advanced countries in the world within 20 years.